Andy, can we start in Bury St Edmunds?
If we must.
We must. So tell me about your life in Bury St Edmunds. How did you end up in Bury St?
So we ended up in Bury St Edmunds because my dad was in the RAF. And we got to Bury St Edmunds. I was about 10 when we got to Bury St Edmunds. Before that, we were in Cyprus and started in London and Norfolk and just moved around a bit. And then we got to Bury. He then left the RAF when we were about 11, I guess. And, they sort of said to me and my brother, do you want to stay in Bury or should we move back to London? Because we were 11, we were like, oh, we can ride our bikes here, it's great. So we were, let's stay here. And then a year later, we were like, we changed our minds. They were like, too late. So we were stuck in Bury St Edmunds. And, it was the 70s. It was, I call it black and white England. It was like it's before they switched the lights on. Do you know what I mean? There was corrugated iron everywhere. It was a bit grim. Everything was a bit grim. It's really hard to explain to people now. And at the time, one would never have imagined that the leap between then and now would be so stark in terms of the way that the country is. But it really was a very, very different place.
So you were in Cyprus before then? So
we were in Cyprus before that,
what are your memories of Cyprus? Was that important in terms of your love of food? Or?
Cyprus was very important in terms of that was the first time I got excited about food, like outside of the house. I remember seeing somebody kill an octopus and thinking, which was really brutal, but I was thinking, wow, that's fascinating. And then we went to the restaurant, it was on the menu. I was like, can I get that, please? And my mum was like, what, the thing you just, I was like, yeah. And I got char-grilled octopus, and it was the first time I'd made that connection properly between that's your food if you kill food and then you eat it, and I was fine with it and had this incredible octopus thing, got really excited about understanding the journey that it took, sort of thing. And then Mum used to work at one of the offices on the airbase, and there was a little stall, like a truck that sold lucania, which are those like little Cypriot, they're a bit like merguez, sort of smoky, paprika-y, gorgeous little sausages. And they used to do them in bread with melted halloumi. I remember it so vividly and I loved it. And then my friend's mum, Elena, her name was, used to make halloumi cheese in her tights. So we used to go around to Elena's to play, and there was a washing line with tights with big balls of halloumi hanging in, if you'll excuse the expression. But I was like, wow, it's cheese. So that's the first I remember just making all those connections and being excited about it, trying to understand how people made things and how they ended up on your table, sort of thing.
'Cause that's interesting, that way an early memory singes upon your imagination. So if it's that potent, if you like, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and those three things I remember very vividly, and they definitely informed me in some sort of way. And the other reason that Cyprus was important to me was just culturally, the way we lived there was very, very different. So, we finished school at midday and we'd go to the beach. We used to have picnics every weekend, and there were like 7 black families, and we all used to play cricket. My dad and the guys used to play cricket, and we would all make all this amazing food and meet every Sunday on the beach and have these really beautiful days. And to me, that was just kind of how life was panning out. And then suddenly they went, oh, we're going back home, meaning here. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't really live here. I thought this was home. And we got to play, and I remember being so distressed, and we had lived in this house that was built into the side of a hill, and it had stilts, and I had my arms around the stilt. They had to literally pull me off and shove me into the cab on the way to the airport. I didn't want to leave because I somehow instinctively knew that, Norfolk, Bryce Norton was not going to be a laugh, basically. And we came back, and I think it traumatized me.
Yeah.
I started having nightmares. I thought things were living under the bed. It was like the dark. The change in the light really sort of upset me and freaked me out. And everybody was so grumpy.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand why everybody was so grumpy all of a sudden. We'd been in Cyprus and everything. I mean, the war was starting just as we left. So, there were like sandbags around our school and all sorts of things were going on. But that was sort of peripheral because I was, 10.
And essentially you were on an island. So
Yeah.
there was that.
Yeah.
Where were your parents from then?
Antigua.
Right.
My mother was born in St Kitts, but she grew up in Antigua. My dad was born in Antigua and grew up in Antigua. But coming back to England was difficult, and it took me quite a long time adjust. I'm not sure that I ever fully kind of went back to feeling totally secure in that. You know, there's that sort of bucolic time of childhood where you're safe, and you sort of don't distrust that in any way. And I think that's when I lost that childhood trusting little spirit
so
thing.
To an extent, that's when the wild started, because you're on the run, I guess, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're looking for a new safe.
Yeah, looking for a new safe and looking for something recognisable that I could kind of hold on to. And I'm not sure that ever really happened until much later.
And you talk about in both in Edmunds, I think one of your lines was that you were the only black person for about 150 miles.
Yeah, black girl, yeah.
Black girl. So effectively, you're unlike anybody else, really.
Absolutely unlike anybody else, and really desperately wanting to be like everybody else. And just feeling like a sore thumb every single day, you know, and being singled out, but not just by other pupils, but even by like I had a German teacher. I went to school with my hair in cane rows one day, and my mum had put these little white beads in, and I felt really pretty and like, ooh, had a hairdo, had my hair did, you know what I mean? And I got to school, and I walked into the German class. He went, "Mein Gott," and got me to stand at the front of the class, and got the whole class to take the piss out of me in German. I mean, how do they let these people near children? I was like 11 years old. And if I could find that man now, I would be like, what were you thinking? You know, so there was that. Stuff like that, though, you know. And the other thing that was really weird for me was because I was a girl, being sort of sexualized by, you know, older men, like Jungle Bunny, weird, I mean, really horrible, strange shit for a 12, 13-year-old kid to have to deal with, really. And I never told anybody about it because I didn't really want to upset them. So I never really spoke to my mum about it. I certainly talked to my dad about it because he was nuts anyway. And you know, my mate Sue and my mate Louise were the only two people that really knew that stuff was going on kind of actively.
So how did you sort of get to work out your...
I got quite tough. I used to fight all the time because I had to, because people wanted to fight me all the time. That was the other lovely byproduct, was that people wanted to fight me the whole time for no reason. They just were like, oh, because different, you know, so let's fight her kind of thing. So I learned how to fight. I didn't really want to fight. I would much rather have been with my book, you know. I remember one day this girl, they were like, Sharon wants to fight you. I was like, who's Sharon? Fuck Sharon is. Which Sharon comes up to me, he's like, hi. I was like, all right. And she grabbed my book, she was going at me, and I was just ignoring. She grabbed my book, she ripped my book. And I was so angry. I just remember being consumed by the fury of it. And we had this horrible fight, which I won, and then I was in trouble because I'd beaten this girl up. I was like, she followed me round. So, you know, I think what happened was everything felt like I was the subject of injustice all the time, which is why I'm quite a kind of righteous person. Like, I will fight for somebody if I think there's injustice happening, and if I think someone's being bullied, if I think there's shit happening on the bus or in the street or whatever, I'm the person that jumps in and puts a stop to it. And I think it's possibly informed by growing up like that, you know, because it used to make me so angry. I'm a very logical person, so to me it just didn't make any sense. And I can't stand stupid, you know. Oh God.
So what was home life like then? Were you building a sort of an environment that you were safe in at home?
To a degree, I was safe at home. My dad was a real philanderer, so when he was around, not so much, but when he was away, which was quite often, we had quite a strong unit. Me and my mum and my brother had quite a strong unit, and then Dad would come back and he'd be in a bad mood and be full of shit and sort of thing. So he would upset the apple cart, be around for a bit, and then sort of bugger off again. But what was happening at home is that my mother's an amazing woman, and what she's always taught, she always has taught me to follow my heart and to follow my mind and to be true to myself, you know. And so whilst all this other, when she had no idea all this other weird stuff was going, because I never told her, but something in her just constantly was laying the groundwork within me to be true to myself all the time. So I always felt able to make decisions that other people thought were maybe you know, like I left school when I was 16, and she was totally fine with that, because even though I come from a really academic family, they're all very, there's only like 2 or 3 of us who didn't go to university in my family. Everybody went to university, everybody got really high marks and are very bookish in that kind of manner, except me and my
so
brother.
why did you make that decision then to leave school?
Because I hated school.
Just to go back to very because of course what's interesting, because I remember reading about your grandma, and you say that, you know, she liked dancing naked on the beach.
Oh yeah.
So you've got all this in your imagination, your mind, and of course where you are, that is you've got nowhere to put that.
Yeah, and I think for me also, and I still am an avid reader. So my escape was books. My escape was literature and speaking to my mum and knowing that there was something other than this tiny, narrow experience, which made me despise it even more, I think, actually, because I was like, this is all so sort of low level, kind of just has to be done, and then, you know, it's like a job getting through this bit of my life. I felt like I was in a waiting room for waiting to get on with the rest of my life. And then when I was 15, the Clash and the Slits came to play in Bury St Edmunds, and that changed my life, like fully, properly changed my life. Ari came on stage and I went, aha! I knew it. I knew you could do whatever you wanted. I knew you could stand on your head and do whatever the hell you wanted. I was right all along. Do you know what I mean? It was like the most amazing vindication for me, seeing the Slits and then the Clash. I remember being filled up with hope and joy and light and fire and passion, and it was everything I'd been waiting for, all in the space of like 2 hours. And we went back to school singing Typical Girls, and we were done, you know. It's just like the best moment, the best moment. So music filled our house all the time, and it was our escape. You know, I was telling someone the other day, but when Songs in the Key of Life came out, do you remember it had that little book in it? And that little book, and I had that little book, and I used to listen to, probably why I'm deaf in one way is now, but I used to listen to stuff that I loved with my ear on the speaker, because I wanted it was like food to me. I wanted every breath and moment and little wah-wah and whatever it was happening. I needed to hear it and absorb it and know it in my bones, you know, because again, it was just the elevation of that took me out of the mundanity of some idiot trying to fight me because I look different to her, or some stupid teacher at school giving me crap, or not being little and blonde and all the things that I thought I was meant to be but was never going to be. It elevated me out of that. It uplifted me and took me to the rest of the world, where I fully expected my people were waiting for me, whoever those people were going to be. But I always had this feeling that there was a tribe out there that I could find and meet.
And you started to see them on stage first of all, didn't you?
I started to see them on stage, and that was the Slits. That was a defining moment for me, particularly the Slits, the Clash too, because I was obsessed. But particularly the Slits in terms of me feeling like a young woman, like other young women, and feeling like I was allowed to be the kind of young woman I was, whatever I decided that might be, you know. And that was the first time I'd really had that feeling. And that's why punk was so important for people like me who were like in the middle of nowhere and who felt quite lost, because it gave us an anchor, it gave us a way through, it gave us a path. It wasn't, you know, people are so funny when they talk about punk retrospectively because they see it as being quite an aggressive movement, but really for me it was really loving. And it was really accepting and actually oddly gentle.
It was, yes.
Forgiving.
And intellectual.
And intellectual.
So that would have fed into
intellectual
well.
and allowed me to start to explore my intellectual side outside of the constraints of an academic parameters.
I love that idea of the tribe, because of course the great moment where you met for real, not on stage, a member of your tribe. You talk about that really beautifully. Your sister, you know, someone you met, So tell me about that, because that's an extraordinary...
That when we met, it really... We were talking about this the other day. I was with her the other day, and she was like, why did we think we was... Because, you know, when you were that young, she was 17 probably, and I was 18, or she was 16 and I was 17. We were very young. And Sean, my brother, had had a car crash with Gareth Sager, who was Brit Big Panic. And Gareth was drunk, driving the car, and he wrapped it around... Cambridge Circus. In those days, they didn't even move the car for about a month. It was sitting there for weeks. People go, it's Gareth's car. Do you know what I mean? They used to leave shit lying around. That's how different it was, right? And now it'd be gone within 20 minutes, right? Anyway, Sean broke his leg very, very badly and was in hospital in town. I can't remember which hospital. And had his leg in a, what do they call the traction for ages, because they put a pin in his leg. So Nana used to go and read to him out of this kind of funny African Bible thing that she had. Don't know why she was reading about the Bible. It was
is that Dorothy, is it?
Is it what?
Is that Dorothy?
Dorothy.
Oh, Nana. Sorry, Nana.
Oh, Nana, yeah.
I'm still getting used to that pronunciation, sorry.
Oh.
I've done the white one for years, and
Well,
it's
not
only now
Nene. It's actually Nene, and I lazily call her Nana. It means little mother. Anyway, so she used to go and read to him all the time out this book, and then I came there, and I walked in, and she was sitting there, and I looked at her, and we were like, hi, and he went, this is Nana, and I went, oh, you're Nana, because he'd been telling me all about this girl that he'd met who I was going to love, and he'd been telling her all about her sister he wanted her to meet, that he was going to love. And we both were a bit like, yeah, whatever. And we sort of went and we started sort of chatting a little bit. And then, this is how long ago it was, we went out into the hallway in the hospital for a fag. Just like, neither of us even smoked, but it was like social smoking. So we went out for a fag, embassy, do you know what I mean? And came back in and said to them, so we're going to sing together. And they were like, what are you talking about? You don't even know each other. And we were like, no, but we just really... And Nana had been in southern Sweden, in the middle of nowhere, experiencing very similar things, even though her family were very different, all hippie, groovy stuff. Every time they went back to southern Sweden, she felt the same as me, just that sort of weird, isolated thing. And then when you go back to, like, bigger cities and you go to other communities, it's not really fitting in there either, because you're actually... a country bumpkin, so there's like a really weird thing of trying to find your place in the world. And we met each other and went, oh, you know what I'm talking about. It was like instant recognition. So we decided we were going to sing together, and literally a month later we were on the road together, and we have been sistering ever since.
And what happened in that month then? How did you
oh, you know what happened? Whose gig was it? I think it was a Slits gig. It was a Slits gig, and I went to see them at the venue. Remember the venue? That was a great place. So that was a good gig, the venue. And I went to the Slits gig and was having a great time. And at the end of the Slits gig, Nana pulled me up from the front stage. She looked down and she went, get, and pulled me up onto the front of the stage, and we just started dancing like fucking lunatics, like swirling about, and everybody was like, wow, they're great. And then Gareth said, do you want to come and do some gigs? So I just joined in, kind of thing, and it just sort of, things just used to kind of happen in those days. I feel like more organically, even though I hate that word, but you know what I mean. Shit just used to happen.
And I guess you sort of invented you would live in a squat. You would have a kind of, and you could find a way to make yourself up, couldn't you? Yes,
exactly, and to kind of finally start your own book and your own story, and I felt like, and I think a lot of people who came to London in those days were waiting to start their story. A lot of people from all these different little places all over the country, biding their time, waiting to be somewhere where they could be a bit free and breathe the good clean air at the top, and fill up your lungs and start to propel yourself forward for yourself, not for anybody else, not by anybody else's design or shape or intent, but through your own, you know?
Yeah. And it was pure energy, wasn't it? Because I remember seeing her and not quite knowing what to do with it.
Neither did we.
But it was fabulous, but you didn't know what to do with it. I mean, now, 30 odd years later, you realise that really it was just probably wrong time. Because it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it was pure energy, and I'm so grateful to have had that time in Rig and Panic, because it kind of formed a really strong bedrock for me about creative life and about how one can best go about exploring your own personal creativity and being brave about it, and also being true to yourself again. And I think that having that as a background, as a kind of cornerstone, has stood me in really good stead, because it's kind of the same as I approach anything. I said to you earlier, someone said to me recently, have you ever trained for anything? And I'm such a ridiculous no.
But in a funny sort of way, you had, haven't you?
Well,
because
sort of,
because the music, the way that had come into your life, because you knew you needed, that's a form of training,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
You're
just not
something.
official. No, I was always getting ready for something for sure, but not realising that that's what was going on. Do you know what I mean? It stands me in good stead to this day. You know, when I'm hosting a cooking show, I still go about that with the same intent.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I want it to be truly me and give it everything that I have.
For those of us who were around at the time, there is nothing more bizarre than seeing you from Rig Rig and Panic present Saturday Morning Kitchen, because it's still the same person.
It's still the same.
And to some extent, we're all relieved that finally there's a world that can allow that to happen. It took a long time. But,
it's taken a long time. It's taken a long time, and I think that what's quite funny for me, they're like really surprised. They're like, "Oh, you really good at this." I'm like, "Well, it's performing. It's a gig." Do you know what I mean? And to be good at anything, for me, it's a movable feast. So the same thing that makes you a good singer or writer or actor or whatever it is, or cook, is the same thing. It's about your approximation of your truth and being able to communicate that as best possible. Yeah. So if you do things and you really mean it, and you know what it is you're trying to get across, you're never really going to fall afoul, because it doesn't matter. There is no right or wrong. There is no fucking up, really, because you just got to go with it and go, oops. And you just got to, seat of the pants stuff. I love that.
Yeah. And I guess Nana gave you the opportunity to understand that this energy, this incoherent energy in you way, there was because of her dad, Don Cherry, and everything, who articulates that in the way he is, gave you an opportunity to understand there was a value in it.
Absolutely. Nana, I always tell her this, and she was, no, shucks. But she really taught me how to free up myself. Meeting her allowed me to become the young woman I needed to be, because I saw another young woman who loved me, who I loved, and she had this education in being free from Don and from Moki, her mother, who was an extraordinary, powerful artist in her own right. And that timing in my life, it couldn't have come at a better time, because I really needed to throw off some sort of shackles of something, and I didn't really know what they were. I'm really aware now, for instance, that young people will be like, well, I'm 23, I don't seem to have achieved my full pop stardom yet, so I'm going to go with plan B. I'm like, what the fuck are you on about? Like, or they're like, I really want to do music. I'm like, well, then write a song. Do you know what I mean? I don't really get. There's like this kind of funny, like they want to jump from 0 to Z and nothing in between. It's like the part in between. That's the whole point. Z is not the point. The point is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and getting to Z. You don't want to miss out the bit in between, otherwise you don't know shit. Seriously, ranty McRant. But seriously, it's like missing the entire point of everything. Just like wanting to have the, car or whatever it is they want to buy at the end of everything. They don't understand what that's built upon. It's built upon knowledge and craft and working really hard and knowing your shit and learning how to do something really brilliantly and better than everybody else.
So what happens after that burst? It was what, 80 to 83, wasn't
80 to 83, and then I had baby.
84?
84, I had Rikita. And I continued doing music a bit. Nana went off and became big pop star Nana. I did a bit more music and was bringing up a child, and I did a little bit of acting. I did a little bit of writing. I started cooking a bit then, actually. There was a place, did you ever know the Globe? Of course you know the Globe, which was like a dodgy, speakeasy at the end of my road. I lived on Palace Terrace. So the Globe was the first place I cooked and people paid me money.
Had you thought of that as a career?
I spent a lot of my life just lurching from one thing to another without really thinking long term. My brain didn't really work that way, and my life didn't work that way, and a lot of my friends' lives didn't work that way. We just used to do different things because it was interesting to us. Do you know what I mean? So I did it, and I was making some money at it, and then I used to cook for James Le Bon as well, who was a video director. I used to do stuff for that, and then I was doing things in videos, and then I did a little bit of I did vagina monologues a bit later. I sort of was a bit of a floating island kind of thing, and then I started doing GLR, I started doing broadcasting. I did Badass TV before that with Ice-T, which was a really weird thing. That was one of the strangest gigs I've ever done. It was just like, okay. I really liked him, actually, Ice-T. He was really funny, but he just used to spend hours blow-drying his ponytail, and I couldn't take him seriously. I'd be like, wow, can we move this along? Do you know what I mean? Fucking hell. Tonguing away. That's like, wow, babe. Just pull it back. It's fine. Anyway, so we did all that and kind of moved around and was bringing up Makita, and then I started doing GLR, and that was really interesting for me because I had never really thought of myself as becoming a broadcaster particularly. And then I realised I loved it because it's just talking to people. And I love people.
So how did you get it?
I used to work at a place called the London Lighthouse. Do you remember the Lighthouse? It was an HIV/AIDS hospice, and I used to work there. So I'm sort of skipping massively because my brother died in amongst all of that. And when my brother died, my world stopped completely, and I was on hold emotionally, career-wise, everything-wise, for about 6 years, I think. 7 years even. I was not in a good place. I would think I was like a high-functioning PTSD person or something, because it was such a shock when he died. It was really, he had sickle cell anemia. He always had officially a shorter lifespan. That was what we'd always been told. But, you know, you get told those things, you don't really understand them when you're 15, 16. He was 28.
That's 1990, so he's
years
old.
Yeah. And it was really, you know, our world, Nana's world, my world, for all of us, and it really fractured us because we were really young people, and Sean was at the core and the heart of our family, and suddenly he just wasn't there. And so a lot of those years were spent trying to pull myself back together. I developed a really serious eating disorder. I got really ill, and I wouldn't see my family. I couldn't really see my family because I couldn't really be around anybody that had been close to me and my brother, because it was like the only way I could get by was by sort of like being a sort of moving target. So I would just spend lots of time with lots of people who didn't really know him, because it was the only way I could kind of cope, really. And then I met my ex-boyfriend Nick, who just sort of put me to bed. I hadn't slept for about a year because I couldn't sleep and stuff, and he put me to bed and I slept. And him and two other friends, Eamon and Sandra, just sort of circled me and kind of let me rest. And I'll never forget that, because they saved my life, I think. I was really spiralling out of control. My daughter had gone to live with my mum, and Sean's daughter went up there as well, because Tessa, who was the bass player from the Slits, is my niece's mum and had been with Sean, and we both were losing it, really. And so I started volunteering at the Lighthouse, because I felt like I had to, if I tried to help other people, I might be able to help myself. And it was really true. Like when I went and I used to do Ladies' Day every Friday, and I used to do something on a Monday afternoon as well, and we'd sing a bit, and we used to do loads of different things. And just meeting people who were also just about hanging on in there for different reasons, it helped me get perspective, and it helped me sort of put myself back together again bit by bit. And one of the people at the Lighthouse worked at GLR and said, would you like to come and do a show? And I was like, okay. Do you know what I mean? At night time. And I went and started doing a nighttime show, and I think I must have done about 6 of them or 8 of them. And then Fee Glover decided she was going to leave, and I started covering for Fee in the afternoon, and then Fee left, and they gave me the afternoon show like really, really quickly. And so suddenly I was a broadcaster, and still not in the best emotional health, I don't think. I really was. It took me a long, long, long time to get past a certain point of trauma with my brother's death. And but I sort of had a job, you know, and I was kind of functioning properly again. It felt like I'd put myself together enough again to do this thing. And the brilliant thing about doing that GLR job was that it doing a magazine show like that, because you have to do it every single day, it's a bit like having your finger on the pulse of the city. And even when you can't be bothered to talk to anyone, you'd much rather stay in the house and be weird, you still got to get up and go out the door and talk to people, even when you really don't want to talk to anyone. And it kind of forced me out of depression.
Yeah.
Because I had no other choice, because I had to keep talking to people, going to see their plays and listening to their album and reading their book and stuff. It reminded me about this great creative world and family that was out there. So it kind of forced me back into my life, really.